The United Kingdom, as we currently know it, comprises of Northern Ireland, Wales, England and Scotland. But with the vote on independence in Scotland rapidly approaching on the 18th of September, Chris Thomas is in the studio with me today for a two-part interview discussing the pros and cons and also seeing whether Scotland can be viably a nation state. Chris, thank you for coming in.
You're welcome, Monica.
Okay. We need to say we're looking forward to this. We both have an inherent interest in what this outcome may be. But we're looking at Scotland, and let's take it back a few hundred years, shall we say. Tell us how we got here.
Okay, well, for the last 307 years, Scotland has been part of Great Britain. It comprises 8.3% of the UK population and 9.2% of UK GDP. For many years, Scottish nationalists have been pushing towards independence, and in 1997 they got their chance for referendum, which thereabouts came the Scotland Act in 1998, and that gave Scotland the powers for devolution.
Okay, so devolution, for those who don't really know what it is, can you explain a little bit about it and what was the repercussions really?
Okay, well, devolution is when the centralised government, in this case Westminster down in London, gives some devolved powers to the local or regional governments, in this case Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And these devolved powers were for education, health, agriculture and justice. And now, after 17 years of devolution, Scottish nationalists want to take things a step further and have a completely independent Scotland. And they'll get the right to vote on the 18th of September this year.
Okay, so currently one of the hottest topics is obviously about Scotland's oil and how much it will control and where the money's going to go to.
Absolutely. And the debate is where the split will be between Scotland's oil and UK's oil. Now, historically, the North Sea shelves have been split up between the European Scandinavian countries with the borderlines on the North Sea by means of median line. Now, if that follows and we assume that will be successful, then Scotland would actually be entitled to 90% of the UK's oil fields, which is quite significant. And given the fact there's around 24 billion barrels of oil remaining, that could be quite a nice amount of oil for Scotland. North Sea oil reserves are declining, and with production costs increasing to get to those heavier fractions, more difficult fractions of oil deeper further down, it's starting to become economically not very viable. Now, if this continues, that's going to cause a real problem for Scotland. Multinational companies who generally own most of these or run most of these oil fields will eventually look to walk away and go to cheaper parts of the world where labour forces and all these other costs are a lot cheaper.
Okay, so what are we really looking at there? What size of revenues could an independent Scotland really be enjoying? Given
that there's about 24 billion barrels of oil still underground, we could be looking at about £1.5 trillion, which, given that there's very high taxes on the oil in the UK, and assuming Scotland continued with the same tax philosophy towards these multinationals, you could be looking at very high revenues generated for Scotland. If we take that into consideration, Scotland's GDP per head of population would be greater than that of France's.
Well, those certainly are interesting figures, and you've given us plenty to start with, but there's more to come for our second part. Thank you so much for now though, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, well that's all from Chris and myself for this first part of the interview on Scottish independence. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about the pound and also the EU predicament. Goodbye for now.